Hello virtual boys and girls, Ryan for the VR Grid here, back with another side-by-side comparison, this time for the game HUBRIS. This released late last year for PCVR headsets to mixed reception, with myself finding the game to be more of a chore despite its pretty visuals. With this week's release on the PSVR 2 and Quest 2 headsets, my partner Chris took another look at the game to see what's changed and whether it's worth your money. Check out the review here. For myself, I thought I'd check out the visual differences between all three versions and show you guys what's up. For this video, I'll be comparing the PSVR 2 and Quest 2 versions separately from the PSVR 2 and PC version. So on that note, if you enjoy this vid, why not hit that like button? Now sit back, relax, and enjoy these comparisons. Oh, and as always, I do these vids for fun, so if you think it's unfair in comparing either version, then don't watch, I don't know what to say. And on that note, let's get to it. So just a quick reminder, I will be hopping between comparison videos, so pay attention to the labels on top just so you know which versions are which. Also worth noting is that there is reprojection on the PSVR 2 version, which I can't show in this video unfortunately, but it is there. It's not the worst I've ever seen, but for those that care about that, it is noticeable. And on that note, here's the PSVR 2 and PCVR versions. They both look pretty similar, minus a few exceptions, which I'll show you right here. First off will be the lighting effects on the PSVR 2. There's just a little more bloom around the lights, which you'll see right here. And you'll also notice a color palette change as well in the PSVR 2 version. It's kind of a brighter, more deeper color, and I can't say it's what exactly is causing that specifically. Whether it's HDR choices or just balancing issues after the fact. But I did notice that the PSVR 2 just looked more vibrant, which you'll see later on in the video. But otherwise, very comparable, save for a resolution bump as well. The PSVR 2 version just has that resolution bump, you'll see later. PSVR 2 and Quest 2 now, you're just seeing the lighting effects. Reflections on the water are just there. So the Quest 2 removes a lot of the lighting effects. There's a few, I don't call them dynamic, there's a few dynamic lighting effects that you'll see later on in the video. But for now, we'll just see there's just a lot more detail, deeper blacks, and everything else on the PSVR 2 version, which just makes sense. The Quest 2 is definitely dumbed down. But that being said, I'm actually fairly impressed by the Quest 2 version. It's not Red Matter 2 levels of detail as far as comparing PC and Quest, but they're close. And the Quest 2 and PSVR 2 versions, they changed the reload feature, so your clip will pop out, you just pop it back in. It works. What you'll see here right away though is the PCVR version. You still have to hold the gun to your head to reload, which makes for a very confusing system, and honestly it kind of one that really slows down the combat because you have to hold the gun to your head for a few seconds. It's a weird choice. I'm not sure why it hasn't been fixed in the PC version yet. Hopefully it will be. But outside of that, the gunplay is basically the same. Now here we got to the cockpit scene here. You'll see PSVR 2, PSC, damn near the same. There is that resolution drop, and I had the resolution settings cranked to max on the PC, so you'll have to use some third-party apps to kind of get everything to work. Quest 2, you're seeing, listen, a lot of reflections are just gone. Shading and lighting effects on her are just absent. But otherwise, it still looks pretty damn slick. Here's our hologram here, so you'll see this as well. Just like I said, a lot more detail and lighting effects on the PSVR 2 version, whereas the Quest 2 version kind of looks like a character model without any lighting or anything else. And here's where you'll see the PSVR 2 and PC, where you see that it's a lot more blurry on PC. Like I said, you'll have to use a third-party app to clean that up further. Even at 100% resolution, it still just didn't look right. So here we go. Here's the opening scene here. Pay attention. Once again, this is where you see the vibrance of the PSVR 2 versus the PC. Things just been cleaned up. They've just tweaked things to make it just look prettier. And obviously, like I said, that resolution drop as well, which I can't really explain. It's less noticeable in the headset, but I still noticed it for sure. And like I said, you can see just the rocky backgrounds. Everything just looks way more colorful and vibrant. Reflections as well in the mask have been jacked up.
If you could climb out of the water and put the new battery
and things just look clear. It's kind of more of a hyper realistic look, but it's a good look. Very similar to kind of I guess Kayak VR Mirage. And here's the Quest version versus the PSVR 2 version. So once again, we'll pause it. You'll just see there's less plant life. The dynamic lighting on all the shadows on all the plants is gone. But once again, the reflections on the water surface are still there. And comparison-wise, it's impressive considering the scale of the game. Just how much of the game is still in here in the Quest 2. Like I said, you'll see the background; those textures are way more blurry, all the cliff faces and stuff like that. As you get closer, they clean up, which I'll show you in a bit. But once again, considering the scope and scale of the game and just how good it looks in the Quest 2, I was very impressed. But, you know, obviously the PSVR 2 version shines, with the developers actually saying it's the best looking version of the game, which you can see here. So here's your kind of just overview of the water. You can just see once again, there's just a lot more happening on the PSVR 2 side versus the Quest, which is just, like I said, a little more devoid of life. Side by side, it looks a lot worse. In the headset, it looks pretty damn good.
My turn now.
But the water ripple effects are still there. One thing I didn't point out, I guess, when you're in the water is that there's actually like some slight rippling in the water, like waviness on the PSVR 2 and PC versions that you don't see on the Quest 2 version. And here's where we get a close-up of the textures, just to kind of see the details on the PSVR 2 versus the Quest, which we'll pause right here. So yeah, you can see, just have a look here. It's very clear just how much more detail, the pock marks on the stones and stuff is there. That's just obviously the power of console and PC. We'll go on to the next scene here. Once again, your outdoor view. Absolutely stunning on either. It looks beautiful, but there's just so much more happening on the PSVR 2. And like I said, the PC version will look the same. I'll show you that here right away. But let's say a surprisingly beautiful game on either headset. Here's the PSVR 2 and PCVR version. Like I said, it's more blurry, which, you know, like I said, you'll have to get a third-party app to kind of ramp that up if you have a PC that can run that. But otherwise, the versions are really quite comparable. And as we go on here, we're going to actually get rid of PC VR version and just focus solely on the Quest 2 and PSVR version. So here's your underwater stuff. Once again, like I said, it's, you know, there's just more happening on the PSVR 2, but the gameplay is intact. And it's one of those things where if you're looking at it side by side, I don't know how much you'd notice what's missing other than the dynamic lighting. You know, less plants, who really cares? Like I said, PSVR 2, PC, you know, it's comparable other than those color palette changes. Okay, here we go right here. If you just have a look and see, I paused it. You can see in the Quest 2 version, the how much less detail there is on the floor. There's less goo and gunk from these, I don't know what you call them there, these aliens that are kind of infecting this place. Which just makes sense. And there's just less assets on the Quest 2. Whenever they can get rid of stuff, they did. Once again, it's not really too noticeable unless you're looking at it side by side. And here's the facility itself, which looks a lot better on the Quest 2 than the outdoor environments, just because it's a lot smaller. There's just less stuff to render, so it looks really good. And the way they do the environmental lighting also makes it look a lot more natural. Here's some effects you'll see here. Just the you can see the floor on the PSVR versus the Quest 2. Just the amount of extra lighting is like the reflections and whatnot. Minor, but you know, it's there. Like I said, there's a reason why, you know, this thing is running so good on the PSVR 2, right? Here's your force field. You can just see, you'll watch these effects here.
What's that sound?
The one thing though is, like I said, the dynamic shadows on the drone versus the Quest 2 where they just don't happen. You'll actually see it get dark here for a second, which is kind of weird. Not weird, I guess, but see it. So we just see it come to shadow here on the PSVR 2, and Quest 2 just gets darker. So they're trying to kind of trick you, I guess, and making things look more natural than they are. And here's some really to notice here is pay attention to the shadows of your drone on the ground on the PSVR 2 side. It's super janky, actually, if you watch this right here. Right? I noticed it in the first level as well. So other than that foible, I never noticed anything else that actually hurt the PSVR 2 version. But I definitely did notice it happen twice with that drone specifically, where the shadows kind of just like flipped into place. Here's some combat too as well. Just to show things off. And we're just about done with the PCVR, PSVR 2 comparisons here. Just a little bit of combat. Once again, you know, the AI itself, you'll see later on the Quest 2 version, the AIs, they're more deadly than they were months ago, but they're still kind of stupid. You know, headshots obviously work really well. We'll get to a quick little cutscene here where I'll jump back between versions. You can see the character models. Like I said, these two versions hold up quite nicely. With the Quest 2 version, you'll see here right away. Just like I said, it's just they can remove a lot of the lighting effects. It just looks a little more stark, but you know, it's minor. There we go.
Was it codenamed Cyanna?
So you can see here, just the character models are just, you know, they're the same model, just lacking a lot of, you know, those lighting, the environmental effects that just kind of make everything look a little more natural. You know, the textures on the backgrounds, everything else is a little more, you know, washed out. But once again, I mean, it still looks fantastic on the Quest 2.
It's the same name I
Very
found in
impressed by the
Tripwire
Quest 2 version,
database,
I gotta
remember?
say.
Dwack, where is Agent Cyanna now?
After she defeated the first two.
Here's some more combat here. You can just see the enemy is not the hardest to kill. And they will behave a little bit stupidly here. That's kind of why I wanted to show you guys this, just in general. Like I said, they can be deadly, but occasionally they might behave like idiots. Making them a little bit exploitative. But otherwise, like I said, inside these facilities, the games look very, very similar. It's not until you kind of pause and look and just realize how much more is actively happening on the PSVR 2 side of things. But once again, it's just see the details in the characters just a little more on the PSVR 2 side, right? But once again, like it's sometimes it can be so minor, and other times it can look quite dramatic, right? Finish off this combat here. This is where you'll see some stupidity on the enemies' parts. Just they're just standing there, just not doing anything. I believe on both versions. Yeah, you can just shoot them around corners. Like they're a little bit exploitative, so I hope the developers do still kind of tweak the AI a bit more. That being said, though, it's better than it's ever been. And here's just your like lighting between like, you know, your dynamic black, your shot, dynamic blacks versus not. And here's a close up of the character model just to kind of see just how much has been removed from the Quest 2 version as far as the character faces. But once again, you know, doesn't look awful. It just looks a little bit less, I guess. So here you can see here on Cyanna's face. There's just a lot more because that natural lighting just really makes everything pop. The details on the costume, everything else just, you know, makes it look like a much more current gen game. And here's our last scene here.
A trooper carrier.
He's like, like Emerald Forest. I'm not sure what you call this thing here. There's your troop carriers. Once again, just a lot more, you know, like ambient effects happening. But the entire game on the Quest 2 is intact, and I think that's actually impressed me the most. Is that literally every single, asset, but like piece of the environment is here. So even though things have been dumbed down, it's intact. It looks great. You'll see some more stupidity from the enemies here. Like I say, it's easy to exploit their AI. They're not geniuses yet by any stretch. You can see obviously the dynamic lighting on your gun as you go into shadows. Doesn't really happen on the Quest 2. And really, I think this kind of sums it up. I mean, like I said, obviously, if you want to play this thing on the, you know, the best way to play this thing right now, in my personal opinion, is the PSVR 2. The PCVR version is definitely a close second. But with that resolution drop, and honestly, the color changes, not to mention the fact there's HDR on PSVR 2 as well, which I can't show in this video. It's the better version by far, especially with that reloading thing as well. But the Quest 2 is no slouch. Like I said, the gameplay is intact. It looks surprisingly well for the Quest 2. Like I said, I put it in the conversation with Red Matter only because the scope of this game is so much larger in regards to the environments. So I kind of can forgive it for not looking as good at times compared to Red Matter 2. But like I said, it's impressive just how much game is in here.
That should be enough.
And yeah, so on that note, guys, that really is the comparison. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below. And really, that's it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching.